I like to cook a rib probably two different ways, but today I'm going to show you how to start them in the oven, finish them on the grill. That way I don't have to fire that old smoker up, ain't near as much trouble, and we're going to get just as much flavor, and they're going to be just as tender when we get through. Now I love to do a baby back rib. You can get the St. Louis style, a whole side if you want, but I do love them baby backs. They are what I call the most tender rib that you can get. But on the back of them ribs is a membrane. Now that needs to come off there before we cook it, so also it can accept the seasoning on there, because this is sort of like a shield. It ain't gonna let nothing get there. So we're gonna pull that membrane off, and sometimes this is a really easy process, sometimes you gotta struggle a little, but all you gotta do is hook that knife under that membrane and just go to peel it off. It does work best when they're about half thawed out, so remember that when you get started. Alright, so you can tell we got that old membrane pulled off there, and look here, it's lime. We ain't fitting to have us no margarita or nothing like that, but what does lime juice do? Lime juice is a natural tenderizer for meat. The citric acid in there is going to break down muscle elasticity. That way we're going to make this more tender. So just roll them limes around before you cut them and just squeeze one on each side. Rub it in really good. If we'd left that membrane on there, this never would have soaked in any at all. Then we're going to go with meat tenderizer. Now, we're doing this 4 hours ahead of time before you think you got to cook them. Because we're going to let this set in the ice box about 4 hours before we do anything else. We've mixed some garlic, some salt, some pepper, some smoked paprika, and you want to season really well. So we'll rub this in as good as we can get it. Go back with the lime juice on this side. Just like before, meat tenderizer and then season. And we'll put them in a pan, we'll put them in the ice box, let them set 4 hours, and then we'll start them in the oven. Got them seasoned up well on both sides. Got a box of chicken broth. Now if you ain't got none on hand, get you some beef broth. You got some pork broth, use it. But we're going to pour the whole deal in here. Pork is a notoriously dry meat, so we need something for it to sit in there and have a little bath. But I like to do this first instead of pouring it back on here. You're going to wash some of that seasoning off when we get them in there. So just going to lay them rascals right in there. Cover it with foil. Set it in the ice box about 4 hours. After we seal them up, we'll preheat that oven and we'll get started. See you then. Well, you can see they got tender in the oven. That's what I was after. 2 hours, about 350 degrees. They didn't run out of broth, didn't dry out. Come out here and preheated this gas grill. Now, we could cook on the wood side, but today we're just going to cook on gas. It is good and hot, I promise you. If you can hold your hand there for more than 5 seconds, it ain't hot enough to cook. As I step out of the picture. But remember, we got to grease it just a tad every time you want to use it. So we're just going to place them right there on it. Now be sure you don't lose none of that broth. And you can tell these ribs are tender because they're trying to fall apart. I used to try to space them in between the burners instead of directly over. We are going to use that broth to baste them as they continue to cook. They've been on a little bit, probably about 3 minutes. I always like to baste them rascals so I can keep them good and moist with that broth that just come off of them, that chicken broth, and what little whole broth there was. So, the reason we're going to finish these on the grill is I want to give them some color, but also I want to give them a little of that char so I'm getting some of that taste. So, they got good and tender in there. We're going to finish them out here on this grill, and it's probably time to turn them, and we'll baste this other side that used to have that membrane on it. You can see it's trying to pull away from that bone pretty good, so we ain't too far off. You can see that it is what you call pretty tender, falling off the bone, so you have to be sort of careful when you get ready to do that. Now, in this little magic elixir here is what we're going to end up putting the glaze on these ribs with. And you always want to do this as the last because it has sugar in it. If you start at the first and do this and go to basting, you're going to burn that sugar on there pretty easy. So we're going to let this warm up just a tad, because all it is 2 sticks of butter, about a cup of brown sugar, 4 cloves of garlic that have been minced up, and about 1/4 of a cup of whiskey. And we'll baste this on there and let it get some good color. It ought to give it a little better crust, and that's what we're after. But we'll just start the basting. You can see the color is beginning to show up a little better. That's what that brown sugar and that butter will do to it. So we'll give her one more good coat. Turn her over one more time and let her get a little crispness to it. And we're going to call this a done haul. First of all, I think I might ought to explain why I'm in this barn. Y'all done see me out there at that wagon so many times. Well, there's a good, smooth Oklahoma tropical breeze today, about 60 miles an hour. That's why I'm in the barn. We done got these ribs finished up nice, give them a good coat in that glaze about 3 times. So we are going to slice us one of these rascals off there, and we are going to eat well, I promise you. Always be sure you let them cool just a minute so they don't fall apart when you cut them rascals. Wished y'all was here, but since you ain't, I'm going to go ahead and eat. You get a little bit of that glaze from that whiskey on there, but the tender is what I want most of all, and that's what they are. Didn't have to fire up the smoker, started them in the oven, finished on the grill. Don't take long. Hope y'all enjoy.